Are y'all ready to go off the trails? I'm the cryptid huntress, Jessica Jones, and I am ready to take you on a legendary journey right now. We welcome you to Off the Trails right here on Spaced Out Radio YouTube channel. If you haven't hit subscribe yet, please do so because we would really appreciate it. All right, follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. You guys can find me on social media on my website, thecryptidhuntress.com, and subscribe to my YouTube channel, The Cryptid Huntress. Also, you guys go check out my shop, War Woman Goods. It's on Etsy and on Instagram. Okay, shout out to Bumblefoot for that amazing intro music. Okay, love it. Totally love it. All right, well, we have a really awesome guest tonight on SOR. We have Darrell Neese, a Bigfoot field researcher and paranormal field researcher. All right, but before I bring him up, you guys don't forget that right after the show, After Hours has an amazing show set up for you guys. So tune in tonight right after I leave you guys. Okay, well, let's get to our guest. Darrell Neese is an avid outdoorsman who has spent the last 14 years doing extensive Bigfoot and paranormal field research around the southeastern U.S. and Washington state. He's a member of the North Georgia Cryptid Researchers, Anomalous Studies and Observation Group, and Enigma Research Group. Daryl is a 1990 NCAA national football champion from Georgia Institute of Technology, one of the most prestigious technical universities in America, by the way. His 35 years of serving in public service, public safety as a firefighter and paramedic ensures that he remains calm during times of high strangeness in the field. His team-first attitude expands from his family to his research teams, and the dedication to his research has led him to some life-changing experiences. And let me tell you, I've experienced some of that with him because Darrell is my teammate, you guys. Please welcome to the show, Darrell Neese. Hello, Darrell.
Hey, good to see you, Jess.
I am so excited that you're here tonight. Thank you so much for joining me. Yeah.
Looking forward to it.
We have had some really wild times out in those woods with our team, right?
Yes, we have. Yes, we have.
We have. Well, Darrell, I want to hear a little bit about what got you interested in Bigfoot and cryptids. Like, did this start when you were a kid?
It did. I was born in 1970. So there's a show that used to come on in the early 70s called $6 Million Man. And some of you guys that are older may remember it. It was in 1970. There it is. There's the picture. 1977. I think it was season 5, episode 5. It was in October. The $6 Million Man fought Bigfoot, which is Andre the Giant. So I thought that was cool. As a 7-year-old, it tickled me to death. So I enjoyed it. Yeah. And then around about that time, the show In Search of a Learning Nimoy and those shows came on, and that's when the Patterson-Gimlin film was kind of being released and starting to being pushed a little bit, and it just made sense to me. It looked real to me, and I'm one of those guys that I don't discount anything. I'm not smart enough to think I know everything, so I can't say something's not real. So I always thought it was real. Flash forward a few years, I'm driving home one night. This is in probably the early 90s, and something catches my head, I catch it in the headlights, and it's the head and shoulders. Well, I was across the street from a horse farm. So I thought it was a horse. And as I drove by, I'm like, I need to turn around and go back and tell those people their horse is out. But then it dawned on me, a horse doesn't have head and shoulders like I saw. So I turned around and went back, and where I saw this thing standing on the side of the road, it would have had to have been 9 foot tall because there was a drop off. So I'm like, wow, I wonder if I just saw a Bigfoot. Didn't think anything else of it. Moved on forward, and I used to ride around on the dirt roads and Bigfoot, hunt. And then one night I saw a set of glowing eyes in a clear cut about 10 feet off the ground. And I went back, and after I saw it, and I looked, and where I saw it, it would have had to have been something that was 10, 11 feet tall. But I still kind of blew it off. And then I got the opportunity to join a Bigfoot group called GBRI. And got to do some investigating with them. And
what does that stand for? What is that?
Georgia Bigfoot Research and Investigation.
Cool. All right.
At the time, it was about a 50-year-old research group. And then that's where I met my mentor and my hero, Bob Grumpy Wilson, and I'm sure
who's on the screen right now.
Yeah. Oh, is he? Yeah, everybody knows.
He's in the chat. He's in the chat. Hey, Grumpy.
He's my hero, and he's taught me everything that I've ever learned about Bigfoot come from Bob. Absolutely.
Let's see if I got a picture I can pull up of Bob. Let's see, where's Bob at? I think I got him here. There's the lovely Grumpy right there. We love Bob.
The man, the myth, the legend.
He is. Yeah. Bob is actually the region, I think it's Region 5 director of the North American Dogman Project and the head of the North Georgia Cryptid Researchers. And he's part of Anomalous Studies and Observation Group and Enigma Research Group. So we're all like a big family, and we all go out in the woods together, having a good time.
And the beautiful thing about Bob is he has information and he shares it, and he teaches. He does. And, he's got all the coolest gadgets in the world. He's the most prepared people I've ever met. And I've learned a lot of things about being a prepper and being a researcher and increasing my situational awareness from hanging around Bob. He's just an amazing guy. Amazing guy.
I agree.
And, with the group I was in, one of the places that I researched, I had started doing my research, and I took my kids out one night. I'm a big Bigfoot researcher now, so I'm going to take my kids out and show them what I do. Well, I'm down in the woods, and I have 2 bats, and I clink them together. Well, something responds, which blew my mind because I didn't expect that was going to happen. I wasn't real sure that all this was real, but I enjoy doing it, so I'm out playing around and seeing what happens. So I clink, and I hear a response. So I'm like, okay, kids, let's move back up toward the road. So we get in the car, and we drive up toward the road, and we pull over to this little spot, and we're sitting there. And, all right, y'all be real quiet. Tell the kids, y'all be real quiet so we can listen. Yeah. Well, I start hearing something walk on each side of our Jeep.
Uh-oh.
And it I'm kind of going, is this really real? Is this happening? And then my youngest daughter, Brianna, looks at me and she says, Dad, something is walking outside the Jeep. And I'm like, yep, it is. Let's go. So we left. And then I'm thinking on the way home how dumb I was to take my kids out. But again, this was just more of a novelty to me than anything because I wasn't real sure it was real, but it was something fun to do.
Hey, so put hair on their chest, okay? Absolutely. That's what my dad says. It put hair on my chest doing stuff like that.
I'm going back to this area the next day. So I call all the members of the team, and nobody will go with me. They say, well, hey, call this guy, Bob. He might go with you. So I called Bob, and on a whim, not knowing me from Adam, he drove an hour, and he and I sat in the woods for about 6 or 7 hours that night. And right before we left, we heard a really impressive scream. So that brings us back out to the next, the next week or so, we're back out there. And he and I are hiking, and Bob's a hiking machine. That man, to be his age, he's just a machine. I was a national championship football player, this big athlete guy, and I'm struggling to keep up with a 65-year-old man because he's killing me. But anyway, we're about 4.5 miles down in the woods, just off of a pretty major river that runs through our state. And it's a few minutes after 12. Bob turns his light off. I turn my light off. And the way we're positioned, I'm watching his back. He's watching my back. And about 2 minutes after we turn the lights off, I hear a whistle. But the startling thing about the whistle is before I heard the air come out. And it's literally right behind me.
That's real close.
It's really close to the point where I raised up and I'm wearing a pistol. So I put my hand on my pistol because I feel like I need to shoot something because I don't know what I'm doing. And I look at Bob and I'm like, Bob, what do I do? And he's like, just be still and be quiet.
Just chill out, right?
So Bob whistles, and then it whistles, and Bob whistles, and it whistles, and it's getting closer and closer. And I'm literally in my mind, I feel like my head's fixing to get slapped off my shoulders. It's that close. And I don't want to move because I don't want to mess up. And Bob's whistling and this whistling. And then maybe 20 feet in front of us, there was the deepest growl, just roary growl. To the point I felt it in my chest. And I'm like, oh, my God, there's 2 of them. I'm going to die. And Bob starts laughing. And that was the end of it. That was the end of it. That's the night that Bigfoot became real to me. It wasn't just something that was a novelty. That's the night it became real to me. And Bob looks at me and says, welcome to Bigfoot research. And he and I have probably spent, no exaggeration, thousands of hours in the woods since that night. And it's all been it's been a pleasure. It really has.
It has. Now, kind of tell me where you're at today, because that was a few years ago, and you started off looking. What were you looking for? Was it a primate in the woods? And
To start with,
where
I was
are
looking
you
for.
today?
To
Yeah.
start with, I was looking for a big monkey.
Uh-huh.
And so obviously I'm a fairly educated fellow, so I start doing research, trying to figure out what it is I'm looking for. And when you look it up and you find out that there used to be something called Gigantopithecus. So I'm thinking, okay, Gigantopithecus used to exist. It makes sense that maybe it still does exist. Maybe they're not extinct. And then you start seeing things when you get out and you expose yourself and you research with an open mind. You start seeing things that don't quite add up. Okay, if this thing is a flesh and blood creature, then how can I be following tracks and then tracks just go away? Or how can I see a structure that is built that is pretty dang impressive for a wood structure to be built with the almost like a beaver. Beaver are pretty impressive creatures, but these things build amazing structures in the woods. Or how is it that you can hear something and not see it? So then you start thinking, you know what, maybe there's a little more to this than just a flesh and blood big ape in the woods. And then you start thinking, you start going into the physics part of it. And, Einstein said that matter and energy are interchangeable. He also said that you can't destroy them. So if you go at things with an open mind and you don't think you know everything, and you approach things with I want to know the answer rather than I already know the answer and I'm going to prove what I think, you find yourself finding out things that you didn't think were real.
Yeah. I think that happens with a lot of researchers. Anybody that spends enough time out in those woods, once you start putting boots on the ground for so many hours and you're out there, you're going to have more than just a big monkey in the woods on your hands. Okay.
Sure.
Because that's where I've come with all of my research, and you and I are on the same teams and go out together pretty often. And we know that there's a lot of weird stuff that has nothing to do with Bigfoot, right?
A whole lot of weird stuff.
Yeah. I mean, in my journey, which is probably pretty similar to yours, since we're researching these same areas and stuff, it's gone from a big, gigantic monkey in the woods to portals and aliens and trickster spirits and Bob turning into a fireball and shooting across the field.
That was a night. That was an interesting night for sure.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's talk about the Meadow Project a little bit, because you and I both work on the Meadow Project, and we call it that because, our friend Trey, the head of one of our teams, he wrote a book and he called it the Meadow Project. And so now we talk about that research that we do out there. We refer to it as the Meadow. Okay. And we've had some weird stuff that's kind of inexplicable, unexplainable. We don't know what's going on out there. But what are some of the weirder things that's happened to you while we're out there researching?
Well, the thing about it is, like you said, you approach an area and you're looking for a Bigfoot, you're looking for a monkey, and then you have something happens that's not very monkey-like. So you have two choices. You can either think, okay, I'm losing my mind, or you can try to explain what you just saw. So, we've had things happen where people lose time. We've had things happen where people get confused. People get lost in areas that they've been in dozens of times, and now all of a sudden they're lost. You have things that appear on thermal camera and go away and reappear and go away. You have things that you can't see with the naked eye, and then you look through a thermal and you can see it. You have a friend and a confidant and a mentor that you love dearly get confused, and then you start worrying about him, and then you see him turn from a human being into a ball of light and shoot across a field. And I don't know how you explain it. So, you turn and look to the guy beside you and go, "Did you see that?" And he said, "Yes, I did."
Yeah.
So then, it's just weird stuff. And people watching this, some people watching it may know me, but I'm sure most don't. I have no reason to lie. I'm not trying to sell a book. I'm not trying to create a name for myself. I'm just telling you what I've experienced, and
Yeah.
it's real. And before I experienced it, if you would have told me it was real, I'd told you probably need to go talk to somebody.
Right.
But now that I've seen it, all I can tell you is get out there and see it for yourself, because you're not going to believe it till you do.
Yeah. Now, Daryl, what do you think about the whole idea that Bigfoots are interdimensional? Considering that our team has basically experienced what we refer to as the portal, because we don't have a better term for it. Last night I had Ron Moorhead on my show, and we were talking about the density of being in these beings, the Bigfoots, changing their density and being able to raise their vibrations and their vibrational frequencies. You are a very smart man and went to Georgia Tech, and you know a little bit about quantum physics, most likely, and you know a lot about a lot, actually. Give me your take on all of this, knowing what you know, or what we don't really know, but what we experienced out in the field with the portal. Where do you think they're interdimensional, and where do you think they're going, and how they're disappearing?
I think, well, first off, as human beings, I think we're all interdimensional. If you're a religious person or a spiritual person, let's say that, and you believe that you have a soul, then just by definition, you're an interdimensional creature, because when our body passes away, our soul is going to go someplace else. So if you believe that, if you have a belief in God, then you by default, you believe we're interdimensional creatures. So I feel like that. I feel like that these creatures are no different, but in a different manner, so to speak. Like I said, Einstein said that, matter and energy are interchangeable. Matter can turn to energy, energy can turn to matter, and you can't destroy them. Okay, God created it, but you can't destroy it. They just change form. So if you're following a track line, and that track line just disappears, then there's one of two things that's happened. Either you're losing your mind, or what you're following wasn't a track line, or the creature that you're following changed from matter and energy and went someplace else, went to a different dimension. In the Meadow, another researcher and I were going out doing some scouting for us to go out and set it, so we could pick out some areas that we were going to set up in the evening. And the field that we were walking in, the Meadow, it had wheat grass that had grown up to about 3 or 4 foot tall. And in the middle of this field,
there's the Meadow right there. I have a picture.
In the middle of this field, a set of tracks started, like car tracks. I mean, there was nothing leading into it. There was nothing leading out of it. They started. They went on for about 150, 200 feet, and then they went away. I can't explain it. Now, in the track line, there were twigs that were, 4 or 5 inches tall that weren't broke. There were dirt mounds that weren't mashed down, but the grass had been laid down. So something interdimensional had been in that meadow. I have followed track lines that start and stop. And I'm a trained tracker, as you know.
Oh, yeah.
Went to the tracking class you did, taught by an amazing tracker instructor.
Yeah.
And I think I'm a decent tracker. And for a set of tracks to start and stop out of thin air, there is no other explanation. That what we're dealing with has to be an interdimensional creature, and that's not hoodoo or hocus pocus.
Right.
It's science. It's not science fiction. It's science fact. It's fact. I mean,
yeah.
Quantum physics says that can happen. So the difference between you and I and some of the others in our group is that we get out and we experience these things. So it's not just something that we hear or we watch on a podcast or we read in a book. It's something that we've actually experienced ourselves. So
yeah,
when I say that those things are real, I'm not saying it because I think it might be real or because I read it somewhere. I'm saying it because I saw it with my own 2 eyes.
Exactly. You experienced it. And not only have we experienced footprints and track lines, but what about, wasn't there a car tracks out in that field?
And that's what I'm saying.
That disappeared.
They started and stopped it for I have no explanation.
It didn't make sense, right?
It makes no sense. Well, with the normal way of thinking, It makes no sense. It really doesn't. So when you have something like that happen in your life, like you said, you have a couple of choices. You can just write it off as, I'm losing my mind. Or you can try to look into, hey, what just happened? I want to understand what just happened. And then when you start delving into it, then you go, okay, well, that makes sense. Quantum physics is not, it's not that difficult to understand. It's difficult to grasp because it takes you away from this three-dimensional world that we live in. We think that time is just time. Here it is.
Mm-hmm.
Well, time is not really linear. It's omnipresent. Okay.
Yeah.
Quantum physics has proved that there are other dimensions. There are theories out there that say that every decision that you could have made exists somewhere in another timeline. For instance, if you go to the stop sign and make a left, well, somewhere in the dimension somewhere was you going to that stop sign and taking a right.
Mm-hmm.
Because every decision you make leads you down a different path. Okay.
Yeah.
Here's the road, and you could go this way, or you can go this way. And for every decision, there's a timeline. Now, that's deep. It really is deep. But if you believe that we are sentient, multidimensional creatures, and if you're a spiritual person, you by default believe that, then that's the way it is. And, it's kind of like gravity. You cannot believe in it, but jump off the building and see what happens. So, someone's belief in something doesn't make it true or false. It just it affects how you deal with it.
Right.
And a lot of things there are a lot of things out there that I thought were hocus pocus until I saw them with my own eyes. Orbs, for instance.
Yeah. Lots of orbs out there.
I used to think that orbs were just a person's way of keeping from being skunked when they went out into the field. You go out and you spend all night in the woods researching. What'd you see? Oh, I've seen a couple of orbs. Boom, hockey. You didn't see an orb. I didn't think orbs were real until I saw them. And I didn't see them by myself. Me and Bob and a few other individuals saw them. And I see one orb turn to two orbs, turn to three orbs, turn to four orbs, then turn back into one orb and start floating toward us. And I'm going through this checklist in my mind. Am I looking at a star? It's not a star. Am I looking at a headlamp? It's not a headlamp because it's 15 feet off the ground. And what am I looking at? So I look through my thermal imager and you don't see anything. And you move, you go back with the naked eye and you see it. And you try to take a picture of it and it fries your camera.
Yeah.
You try to take a video of it and it kills your battery pack. You take your EMF meter out and it's just going off the charts. So the night I saw him for the first time, I bet I said, holy hockey, using a different word, 50 times because I could not believe what I was seeing.
Yeah.
It's just not supposed to be real, but it was because I saw it.
Yeah. It was. Now, okay, so we have a question here, Daryl. Do you think the Bigfoot are running and jumping a long distance and it looks like the track stopped?
No, and I say that for this reason. When we lose a track line, we continue in the direction of travel for another 200 or 300 yards, and we sweep our way back to our track line. So if that's the case, when we're losing these track lines, then they're jumping way further than 200 or 300 yards.
Yeah.
And so I don't think that's the case. Now, could it happen? Maybe. But based off my experience and my education and my knowledge and my training, that's not what's happening.
Probably not. Probably not.
Most likely,
I wouldn't think so either.
Not. Most likely.
Yeah. Now, what do you think about this theory? Because I've been asked this. I was actually asked this on Dave Scott's show when I was his guest here on Spaced Out Radio. He asked me, is it possible for a Bigfoot to walk backwards in their own footprints to not have any more tracks, like when their tracks just disappear like that?
Now, that could happen, but
I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, a novice tracker. I mean, someone who's been to tracking class one day would be able to pick that up because the footfall would be different and the depressions in the ground would be different. But then again, I mean, they backtrack to where they started, and they started out of nothing, and they disappeared into nothing. So are they just walking back and forth in the same 100-foot, 200-foot track line?
Yeah, I had to ask.
Yeah, I don't. I don't think that's the case. I don't.
Okay.
Apologize for coughing. My allergies are killing me.
It's okay. It's okay. I'm sorry. There's something going around. A lot of people aren't feeling so great, but it sounds great to me. But okay. So not only do we have Bigfoot activity and UFOs and orbs, all this, we have all sorts of stuff in this meadow. And by the way, we call the meadow, the Skinwalker Ranch of the South. So Daryl, knowing a little bit about the Skinwalker Ranch, or maybe you don't know so much about it, but you know about the meadow, right?
Mm-hmm.
We have ghost box sessions out there, and we have what we call the Estes protocol that we do.
Yes, we do.
And you are the king of the Estes sessions. Okay. So Daryl, you are the best, what do you call it? The conductor, I guess?
I think it's a receiver.
Receiver. You're a receiver. Like I've never experienced before. You know, we go out there and we'll do a ghost box session where Daryl is the one that these, I guess, spirits, are speaking through you. Daryl, let's talk about that a little bit. Tell me your experience with the ST session.
It is the thing about it is, as the experiencer or the receiver, you don't really know what's happening. I mean, all you're doing is you're sitting there with blinders on, earbuds in, noise canceling earphones on, so that you can't hear or see anything around you, and all you're doing is just repeating what you hear. So, you know, as the receiver, what I'm saying makes zero sense to me. But one thing I have noticed is that on a couple of sessions, you kind of lose track of time. I mean, you know, I don't know if you get into a zone, if you want to use an athletic term, or a trance, but it's just I guess you may be so concentrated and so focused on trying to understand and hear what's being said that you lose track of time. And then when they, you know, take you out of the session and then they start reading the questions and reading your answers, it's impressive. It really is. But I don't think it has anything to do with me. I think I was lucky enough to be the guy who was listening a couple of times when the entities really wanted to communicate.
Yeah, well, I tried it and they didn't seem to like me very much. So I don't know if you recall that, but they did not want to talk to me. They did not want me they did not like me. And I think the same went with Keith too, from what I recall, but it's okay. It's okay. I didn't like them either.
Well, I mean, and the thing about it is you can't fake it. I mean, you can't.
No.
So, I mean, if anyone is watching has ever experienced the Estes protocol and the way we do it, it's not something you can fake. Okay. No. It's, I mean, you can't hear the questions. As far as I know, they could be asking questions about what's my favorite ice cream. I don't know. I don't know what they're asking. I'm just listening and saying what I hear. So it's an impressive tool to use. And I think we've gotten some pretty astounding information that way. I would like to see us use it more, and I think we probably have some plans to do that, and maybe try to tweak it a few ways, and maybe make it more bulletproof, for lack of a better word. So if we have a couple of different receivers and things are, anyway, there's lots of ways we could do it and play around with it that would yield different results. And you know, Trey and I and Bob and you and some of those have talked about it, and I think we're going to play those games and see what happens.
Yeah. So Daryl, what do you think about that meadow? Like, what do you think makes it so active out there? Do you think it's the land? Do you think it's dimensional, like all these ley lines? Do you think it's the people that are out there? I mean, what is your opinion of the meadow as far as it being so active with high strangeness?
That's a great question. It really is. Now, I mean, there's lots of things that can make an area that way. I think it could be its history, the things that have happened there throughout history. You know, maybe there's some sort of tragic event that occurred there, or some massive loss of life, or something that happened. I think a lot of it has to do with topography,
Mm-hmm.
There's natural barriers to if something wanted to stay secluded there, it could do it really well because it's surrounded by mountains.
Mm-hmm.
There's water there as a natural barrier. So, and then if you look at it from an energy source, there's water there for an energy source. And who knows what's under the ground as far as quartz and that sort of stuff. So I think there are areas in our country that lend themselves to high energy strangeness, for lack of a better word. And that's what we're dealing with. We're dealing with energy. What type of energy? That's one of the things that we went through with the Estes session. Is it what kind of energy we're dealing with? And if I can remember correctly, the entity was getting a little agitated the more questions that we were asking. So I think we were maybe getting close to something, and it was getting a little frustrated with us. But I think there are areas like that all over, and I'm certain if you took different maps and overlaid them with, Bigfoot sightings and UFO sightings and paranormal stuff, and you would start to see that there's probably a correlation, that there's lots of areas like that. We were lucky enough to find this area, and I know sooner or later, somehow, some way, somebody's going to figure out where it is, and it's going to be all boogered up. But until then,
we'll move on to the next one, though.
Yeah,
right? There'll be more.
we have an amazing place. But there again, I think a lot of the things that happen in that area happen because we are there. I had a friend tell me one time, a ghost will never reveal itself to you because it knows it's wasting its time because you don't believe they exist. And I always thought that was hockey. Just bull. It was just their way of not having to justify what they'd saw. But I think there's some truth to that. If I'm an energy being, and it costs me effort to communicate, I'm not going to waste my time and energy trying to communicate with something that doesn't want to hear what I got to say.
Right.
And I think when we show up, I think when we show up and we show up with our ears open and our eyes open and our minds open, and we're there to try to figure out what's happening, I think maybe if there is something there that wants to communicate, then it's like, hey, here's somebody that's listening.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Hey, Daryl. So, we have all that high strangeness out there. There's also the element of, in our national parks, we have clusters of missing people, according to the David Paulides Missing 411 series. And our team has experienced what we consider to be a portal out there. That two of our teammates, including Bob, disappeared as they walked over to check it out one night. Do you think that this portal, whatever this thing is that we don't totally know everything about yet, do you think that could be where these missing people are going?
I think that it's probably not exclusive. I think some of the people that go missing just simply go missing because of human error. But I do believe that there are some who have gone missing, who stepped somewhere maybe they shouldn't have stepped. And again, if for people who don't know exactly what we're talking about, this sounds like a bunch of hocus pocus. It really does.
Yeah, it does.
But
until you experience it,
when you see it with your own eyes, and you watch a team member that you're watching on thermal disappear, where did they go? You can't hide from a thermal imager. You just can't. Not in the woods.
Yeah.
Now, if you're inside and you go behind the wall, okay, fine. But in the woods, you can't hide from a thermal imager, and that's why we use them, because you can't hide from them. If you give off energy, you give off heat, and the thermal imager doesn't look for heat; it looks for heat differences. Okay, so I mean, it could be minus 15 degrees, and something that's minus 10 degrees is going to show up as a different heat source. Okay, so that's the way the thing works. So when you see people that you know and love and trust go into something and disappear, and because they have situational awareness enough to know that, hey, something's different, maybe we need to reverse course, and then they back out. I think if maybe someone wasn't paying attention, or someone wasn't trained, or someone didn't have situational awareness, they could step into one of those things and
Mm-hmm.
disappear from this dimension anyway. And I certainly think, and I know that sounds weird. I can hear people who are going, this guy's full of, okay, all I can say is go, get out in the woods. I promise you.
Take somebody with you.
And that's the beautiful thing about it is all these things that I'm telling you that have happened. It's not me saying I saw it. It's me, and I can point you to 2 or 3 other people who were there when this happened. So it's not, you don't have to take my word for it. I can give you references.
Yeah. I mean, we have the portal actually on film, documented. So
we do.
Yeah. It hasn't gone public yet, but we sure have been talking about it a lot, right? Yeah. Well, Daryl, Brown Dwarf says one of his latest videos touches on Skinwalker Ranch and portals. So David Politis must be putting it out there a little bit. I haven't heard this yet, but we'll have to look into that.
Well, I mean, I think he's probably, or maybe always had that in the back of his mind. But I mean, if you're a respected journalist and you say something that's kind of way out in left field, you stand the chance of not being a respected journalist anymore. But the more and more this kind of stuff is mentioned and talked about and discussed reasonably, I think the more accepted and the less hokey it's going to become.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, absolutely. Well, what else have you experienced out in the meadow? I mean, I know we get to have 1,000 things to talk about. Is there anything else that just stands out that our audience would be interested in?
There's a couple of, and this goes back to the whole Bigfoot thing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's a trail that we take to the meadow. And I've seen this in areas where I've done Bigfoot research, where you'll take a trail and you'll have a pathway that you walk constantly. And then all of a sudden that pathway will be blocked. You know, we had a trail that we frequent to get to the meadow that had a tree, gosh, I don't know, maybe 14, 16 inches in diameter placed across it. And when I found it, I start doing what we always do. Okay, could Mother Nature have done this? So you start looking for ways to rule out Mother Nature. And once you rule out Mother Nature, then the next thing is, okay, could people have done this? People could have done it, but a person couldn't have, because it was a rather large tree. And you saw the tree, so you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
But then the question becomes why? Okay. So, you know, Sherlock Holmes says, once you rule out the impossible, what you got left is your answer. Okay. So we had a tree placed across the path to keep us from going out that path that could have only been placed there by a piece of heavy equipment or something that was strong enough to do it, which, you know, we believe a Bigfoot could do for sure. We've had wood structures that have been created for us. There have been paths that we have followed where, you know, if you're now walking through the woods and, you know, there are brambles and stuff at about eye level, we're going to break them off. And if you're walking through the woods, it's also a good idea, if you don't have tracking equipment or whatever, or GPS, to break limbs so that you can find your way back out if you have to. So we do that as humans, okay? Well, when you look at a path through the woods and everything that's broken off is broken up at 7, 8, 9 feet tall, and they're all, what did that? Okay. So then again, you go back to looking, did a tree fall to this? Did a human do this? And again, once well, a human could have done it, but it makes no sense for a human to do it. So we've seen trails like that. We've seen through our thermal imager, we've seen entities, heat signatures, not be there, then be there, then not be there. We watched the night where we saw the portal. We had, before we saw the big portal, myself and Tim and Trey saw a small square. And I saw it And because of my point of view, I thought maybe I didn't have a good view. So I handed my thermal up to Trey. And then Trey looked at it. And he said, okay, that's not a square. It's a bunch of deer. Okay, so he handed it back to me, and I looked and I'm like, well, that's not what I saw, but yeah, there are a bunch of deer there. So then you walk 10 feet to get a better viewpoint, and then those deer are gone. And I mean, in a matter of 5 or 6 seconds, deer that couldn't get away from you in 30 seconds on a thermal are just gone. So there's a lot of head scratching things that happen.
You were just scratching your head. I know.
That's my whole point. It just, even to talk about it makes me kind of go, I don't know.
Yeah, we're left with more questions than answers, right?
Yeah, I don't know what it was, but I know what it wouldn't. So, and that's the way we are. That's the way we are a lot of times out there. You know, we've had batteries die. We've had cameras get fried. We've had phones get fried. We've had car alarms get messed up. We've had cars
every
die.
time. My alarms always go off, and my keys. You know, the first thing I do when I get there is I have a, what do you call it, a carabiner that I have my keys on, and I put it on my belt loop so I never don't have my keys on my body, because my car locks by itself, and the alarm beeps and all that stuff over and over again every time I'm out there. It's weird.
It is one of those. It's one of those places, and we've talked about this before. Just when you think you've got it figured out, you show up and to research what you know. Okay.
Yeah.
We know that we found baseballs in this field, and my God, we're going to go out there this weekend and we're going to find baseballs. And you go out there and there's a football, and you're like, oh my God. So it's different.
Where do these footballs come from? It doesn't make sense.
It's different. So if you're looking for Bigfoot, then you find ET. And if you're looking for ET, then you find, Grandma Betsy that passed away 200 years ago showing up. Yeah. And so, I mean, every time you go with the intent of, this is what we're going to do today.
Yeah.
Or this is what we're going to find this weekend. It always throws us a curveball. So it's just an amazing place. And I think that's a testament to the strength of our team.
Yeah.
Because no matter what anomaly is presented to us, we handle it. We have amazing protocols in place. Trey has done a great job of putting a lot of safety nets in place. A lot of we don't do this and we do this, and we have an amazing team full of people who are trained in tracking, and people who are trained in remote viewing, and people who are trained survivalists, and people who are trained in first aid, nurses, paramedics.
And we even have people like Katie Grabowski out there who is in the chat room tonight. Hey, Katie, she was out there with us. She said, Daryl and I heard chatter in the woods. Nobody was anywhere close. And she wants me to remember what happened to the car last time. My batteries died, and she and I were left stranded by ourselves, and had a nice gentleman come jump the car off before we had to get her to the airport. So, hey, Katie.
And that's a great point. Thanks for bringing that up, Katie. We were in the field that night, and what she and I were doing, we were focusing on skywatch, basically, seeing if we could see any anomalies in the sky. And I heard talking in the woods earlier, but I saw her phone. So I thought maybe she was watching something on her phone. Well, she was looking up.
There's Daryl in action, everybody.
Yeah. She was looking up information on her phone. So the second time I heard it, she didn't have her phone in her hand. And I said, did you hear that? And she said, yes, I did. And so we radioed the team that was near us, or that was in the field with us. They weren't near us. I mean, we wouldn't have heard them if they were talking, and asked them if they heard it. Well, they didn't hear it, and they weren't talking. So I don't know if you want to call it disembodied voices. I don't know if you want to call it para-radio or whatever. But those are the things that happen. I mean, when you have the woodsmen that we have on our team who have been in this field dozens and dozens of times, get lost as last year's Easter eggs in it, and get confused and have no idea where they're at or what's going on or what direction they're facing, there's something to that.
Yeah.
I mean, when you have Bob Wilson in a field that he's been in 30 times get lost and then get lost again and then get lost again and have no idea how he got there and have no idea where he's at, and then turns into a ball of light and shoots across the field and then rematerializes as a person. And I saw it, and Tim saw it. God rest his soul. Man, I miss that man.
Yeah,
but
me too.
I mean, you how else do you explain it? And I'm not trying to change anyone's opinion of what we do. If you want to believe it, fine. If you don't want to believe it, fine. What I'm telling you is things that I've seen with my eyes, and the people that I trust with my life have seen with their eyes. And it is all I can say is if you think I'm full of it, I used to think I'm full of it. Okay, I used to think that if you would have told me what I'm telling you 10 years ago, I would have said seek some professional help. But
right. And some people still think that about us. Okay.
When you actually get off your hind end and you take yourself to the woods and you put yourselves in the situations to experience these things, I promise you, you're going to have a revelation, and you're going to go home with a completely different perspective of life than you went to the woods with. People ask. I had a guy asked me one time. He said, I'm a Christian. And he said, does that affect your Christianity? I said, not at all. Not at all. He said, well, do you think God made aliens? I'm like, yes, I do. That's what the book says. It says in the beginning, God created. So, and that goes into a whole different area. We've often talked about if we were to encounter beings from another planet, aliens, how would we communicate with them? What is the universal language? I don't know what the universal language is, but I do feel like, and this is my opinion, that the one thing that we do have in common is our creator. God created them, God created us. So that's the one thing that we do have in common. And I believe that may be an avenue that we could to begin communications from and go from there. But that's just my opinion.
Well, hey, it's a great opinion. I mean, we're all just searching for answers, Daryl. We have less than 10 minutes left, and I wanted to just bring up tonight that we would like to dedicate this show to our friend Tim Gilardin. Okay, Tim was one of our best friends, and on our teams with Enigma Research Group, Anomalous Studies and Observation Group, and North Georgia Cryptid Researchers, and whoever else came out in the woods with us. Okay, and Tim passed away a couple of years ago, and he actually is one of the gentlemen who walked into the portal with Bob. Okay.
And he was the guy who was standing with me when Bob turned into the orb. He shot across the field.
Yeah. We wanted. Yeah.
But this is the same guy who spent hours trying to teach the young kids in camp how to start a fire from nothing.
Yeah.
And who spent time trying to teach me how to do, defensive stuff. He's just an amazing guy. The world is a lesser place because he's not here.
He actually taught my son how to have pocket knife safety, and to take the bark off of sticks and things like that the safe way. So that's something. It's actually a tool that my son has used ever since. So
and the thing about it is, not only was he special forces in the military, but he was also the guy had a master's degree in physics from Georgia Tech.
Yeah.
So, and we have spent countless nights around the campfire till the wee hours of the morning discussing physics and quantum physics and timelines and alternate dimensions and
all the stuff we're doing now, right? All the things that we're trying to understand.
Guy. He's an amazing guy, and the world is a less safe place because he's not here. Yeah.
Well, actually, he's guarding us from the other side.
Yes, he is. Yes,
Daryl. He's actually able to take better care of us on the other side. So and and we have such a tight-knit team. Like, we're not just a team, we're a family. I mean, any of us would lay down our lives for the next. And Daryl, you are a team first type of guy. I mean, we
thank you.
pretty much all are, but you are, the stand up. You're a stand up man, and I think everybody feels more safe having you on our team.
Well, that's kind of you to say. Thank you.
Yeah,
But one of the things that Tim really focused on, and Bob does this too, and I appreciate what they've done. People ask all the time, well, how do I get into this? Well, this is kind of an expensive thing to do.
Yeah.
The equipment that we have, and Tim and Trey were really fixing to take it to a whole nother level as far as monitoring equipment and measuring magnetic fields and measuring time differences like on the microsecond level and measuring gravity and all those things. We aren't just people who are out in the woods creating stuff and going, look what we found. We're a very scientific based team. And I think Tim was a guy who Tim and Trey and Bob and all of you guys are responsible for that. And I think that's what makes our team so special. And I think that is why some of the things that have happened in the Meadow, we were able to experience because we were equipped to experience them. Had we not had the equipment that we had the night all those things happened, we would have never known they happened because they weren't visible with the naked eye.
That's true. Yeah. And I also think that it's our merry bunch of crazy people that we're going out with and having fun with. I think that it's more us than it is the land, to be honest with you. I mean, and I was talking to Ron Moorhead about that last night. I think it's more of the people than it even is the land that we're researching.
Well, in the way I would put this out there is that if you don't, FM frequency is out there, okay? But if you don't have an FM receiver, you don't know it's there.
True.
Until you turn on your FM receiver, you're not going to get the FM frequencies that's out there. Well, there are things that exist in our universe, okay? And we know they exist. Math. Ron talked about this last night. Math proves it. And math can't lie, okay? So there are things that are out there. And the only reason that we don't know they're there is because, number one, we're not looking for them. Number two, we're not equipped to receive it. So you talk about all the time, increasing your vibration, increasing your energy. And basically what that means is, for those of you who are watching this, free your mind. Open your mind up. Don't go into something with a preconceived notion that you know everything there is to know, because you don't. I'm guilty. I used to think I'd been everywhere but hell and seen everything but the wind. And boy, was I wrong. It is when you get out in the woods and you get with a team and you get the equipment and you go out and you start looking for answers. Don't look for a specific answer. Don't go out in the woods looking for red. Just go out into the woods looking for a color, so to speak. Go out in the woods just with the open mind and go, hey, I'm here, whatever there is to experience. If it's just a different kind of animal, or if it's a beautiful sunset or whatever it is, and go experience it. Go get out from behind your computer. Get off your couch, go buy you some decent boots, buy you a good flashlight, and hit the woods. I mean, we live in an amazing country that has millions and millions and millions and millions and millions of acres for you to go explore. Go explore. I promise you, you're going to find something that you didn't know existed.
That's right. Well, Daryl, okay, so, you started off looking for Bigfoot and a big monkey in the woods. Have you found what you set out looking for when you first started all of this journey?
Well, I have more questions.
Loaded question.
I have more questions now than I have answers. You talk about the supernatural thing. I'm a firefighter paramedic. And at the time, back in the late 90s, I think it was 98, I ran a real bad accident. And at this accident, there was a mother who lost her life. When we got there, there were 2 car seats sitting on the white line of the road. It was a 2-lane road, 2-lane country road. 2 car seats sitting on the white line of that road, and there was a little old lady standing there with those 2 car seats. I said, are they okay? She said, they're fine. She's down there. So I went down into the woods. The lady had been ejected out of her car. She was deceased. I came back up to talk to this lady because I thought maybe, because there were no other cars there. It was this car and the car who had called it in. And he was a guy who was down the road. I went back up to talk to the lady to see if she was okay. She wasn't there.
Mm-hmm.
So I looked at my partner and I said, "Where's the lady?" She said, "I don't know." So I went down to the guy who had called 911 and I said, "Was that lady with you?" He said, "What lady?"
Oh, wow.
I said, "The lady who was standing up by the car seats."
Oh my gosh.
That night,
Yeah.
I saw an angel.
Wow.
And I've talked to my partner about it, and she's like, "Daryl, we just saw an angel." Absolutely, we did. So I know these things exist. I know that there are things out there that are you just
Yeah.
if you keep your mind open and you keep your eyes open and you keep your heart open and you go out into the woods and you experience things.
Yeah.
You're gonna understand and you're gonna discover that things exist that you had no idea were there.
That's right. Daryl, this has been a wonderful night. I love this. I think you're an angel, to be honest. And I am so thankful that you came on the show tonight and shared all of your experiences with us and your knowledge. And what a beautiful story to end on. And, I hope that you'll come back and join me. Okay.
Absolutely.
I've got goosebumps. And, yeah, everybody say an extra prayer for Tim tonight. We miss him and we love him. Okay.
Yep.
All right, Daryl. Well, thank you for being on here with me tonight, and we will see you soon. Okay. Thank you. Okay.
Yes,
you have a good night. All right, y'all. Was that not awesome? All right. Don't forget that after the show, you guys can join After Hours. They're going to take you on an incredible, mysterious journey for the next 3 hours. So tomorrow on Off the Trails. Oops, sorry, not tomorrow. I got that wrong. We're going to have this next week. I've got my guest, Tyler Koala of Journey to Truth podcast, and we're going to get to his experience with cryptids and his journey to the truth. I can't wait to see you guys then. But for now, I'm the Cryptid Huntress, Jessica Jones, and I'm headed off the trail. And After Hours is next. So you guys have a wonderful night. Goodbye.